Hello, class. This is our, I guess you could say, midterm review. Basically, what we're trying to do here is give you an outline of some things you need to know for your midterm exam. Now, our midterm, there's no tricks, nothing like that. If you have watched the lectures, and you've paid attention, and you follow my instructions on this video, I am sure you will do very well. Our midterm will be 20 questions in length, and they are multiple choice. Now, like I said, there's no tricks. It's just study, do what you got to do, you'll do fine. Here's the rules on the exam itself. Is you can use anything at your disposal, any resource you would like, except for another human being. Okay? So you can Google answers, you can look through your text, you can look back through videos. However, you can't use another person. So, let's talk about 20 things I think you need to know. Now, obviously, I'm not going to give you the exact questions, but this is some things you should take some notes on and kind of familiarize yourself with prior to the exam. You need to know, the first thing is, how you start a lawsuit. Or what is a pleading, okay? And how do you begin a lawsuit? Another thing I would say the second thing is more of what are the steps of a lawsuit? So it starts with a particular paper, and then it ends with a paper, and there's steps in between. You need to know all the steps of a lawsuit. Inside of a lawsuit, there are items called discovery, okay? And of those items, there are several different types of discovery. You need to know the different types, and you need to know the rules of the types. Like, for instance, which ones are of parties, which ones is for witnesses, which ones are taken orally, which ones are written down. So just some basic discovery is what it was called. You need to know those devices. There is a term when it comes to jury selection. You need to be aware of jury selection and what it's called. So just refresh yourself on jury selection, but that will be on there. Another part of the exam is what's called alternative dispute resolution. So we've talked about that in prior videos. You need to know those different types of alternative dispute resolution. So, I'll give you an example. One would be mediation. Okay? So you would need to know that mediation is a type of alternative dispute resolution, and then just some basic things about it. You don't have to get too in-depth on any of it. You're just going to kind of know what they are. Know what is alternative dispute resolution and what isn't alternative dispute resolution. We got to kind of understand a little bit about the Constitution as well, okay? And there are parts of the Constitution that discuss how the courts are formed. We kind of know those things. Also, there is, I guess you could say, the way that when a federal law and a state law conflict, there are things in the Constitution that help us determine which law should prevail, okay? There's a clause in the Constitution that talks about that. You need to know what that is. Another thing in the Constitution, if you haven't noticed, the Constitution is kind of important. We need to know what the powers of the Constitution are, and in particular, interstate commerce, okay? I mean, where in the Constitution does Congress get the power to regulate interstate commerce? And then we need to know what interstate commerce is. Like, what is the difference between interstate commerce and intrastate commerce? We'll need to know that. The Civil Rights Act was a big part of our lecture series. So we need to know a little bit about it. Like who it protects, when it was formed, just different aspects about it. You kind of refresh yourself on the Civil Rights Act. There was another act that's incredibly important in hospitality law, and that's the American with Disabilities Act. So we need to know a little bit about it, like when it was passed, who it protects, who it's intended to be set against. Additionally, when it comes to the ADA and it comes to Civil Rights Act, not every business has to, comply with those acts. So we need to know, kind of which businesses do and which businesses don't. And then I guess if you don't comply with either of the acts, what can happen to you if you're a business? I mean, can they throw you in jail? Can they fine you money? Can they close down your business? What can they do? So we kind of need to know what those things are. It's very important that when you're in hospitality law, that if you don't take anything else away from the class, you have to understand the Civil Rights Act and you have to understand the American with Disabilities Act. Because those two things are so incredibly real-world uses. I just had one I'll share with you. I mean, it was Thursday. I had a client of mine. Well, they're now a client of mine. They weren't previously, but we had someone call my office for a consultation. And it was a local establishment that serves food. I won't really call them a restaurant per se, but they serve food. And they fall under the ADA. And as part of that ADA, they have to provide a restroom facility that someone that's handicapped can use. Well, someone was in their establishment and needed to use the restroom, and they couldn't because the bathroom was not large enough to fit a wheelchair in. So, long story short, they're getting sued for not complying with ADA. Crazy important stuff. You just have to know that if you're going to be in hospitality. Because hospitality, I mean, it's in the name. It's all about being hospitable to all people. So we got to make sure we know it. But I digress. Back to the midterm. We talked about intentional torts. We need to know all those intentional torts. There's about 7 or 8 of them. You need to know them and kind of what the elements are of them. So, I'll give you an example. A battery is the unwanted touching of another, okay? So, a battery could be I punch you in the face. A battery could be that I tap you on the shoulder. It doesn't have to hurt you. It just has to be unwanted. So we got to kind of know the different intentional torts. And then I guess finally, in our last lecture, we went over negligence. Negligence is the number one, hands down, the number one course of action that starts a lawsuit. Like, there is nothing else in the world that more lawsuits are based upon negligence than anything else. I would say that it is, incredibly high numbers. Like, probably if you were to take negligence, okay, I'll give you an example, a real world example. There's an old saying that Alaska is the largest state in the United States based on size, and Texas is number 2. Alaska is so big that if you were to cut it in half and make it 2 states, Alaska and New Alaska, Texas would now be the 3rd largest state. That's how big Alaska is. Same thing with negligence. Negligence is such a commonly used way that people sue under that it's like double whatever its next competitor is. So you need to know negligence, especially if you're going to be any type of hospitality or any business in general. So those are kind of the things I want you guys to kind of refresh your mind on. This week, I'm not going to give a new lecture. I want you guys to go back over your old lectures, kind of pick out some bits and pieces of things you just heard, make sure you know them, and I will open up the midterm next week. I probably will open it up. Excuse me. Let me rephrase that. it'll be open until next week, okay? So this is the week that you guys will do your midterm. I'll open it up for the next, I don't know, week or so. And so get it done, get it in. There'll be no discussion post this week. Just focus on the midterm, get it completed, do a great job. So that's pretty much what we got for our midterm review. Good luck, and we'll see you guys next time.